Hey guys, in this video, we're going to take a look at getting NextCloud set up in Docker as we've done in the past, but in this video, we're going to do a few additional things like setting up proper crons. We're going to make sure that our security and setup notifications are taken care of as much as we can, but we're also going to take this to a different level than we've done in the past, and we're going to make this accessible on a domain without any port forwarding using Cloudflare Tunnels. But first, a quick message from today's video sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Linode, the largest independent cloud computing provider. If you don't want to, or can't for whatever reason, self-host applications the way we talk about on this channel, Linode provides virtual servers that make it easy and affordable for you to host anything in the cloud. You can set up any of the applications that they have available in their marketplace with just a few clicks, or you can set up your own Docker VPS and install basically whatever you'd like in a Docker container. They have load balancers and firewalls available to help keep your apps online and safe. If you run into any trouble getting set up, Linode comes with amazing 24/7 customer support by phone or ticket, along with hundreds of guides and tutorials to help you get started. Sign up today at linode.com/dbtech and get a $100 60-day credit on your new Linode account. Links are in the description. You may have seen one of my previous NextCloud videos, but here recently I've kind of switched up how I handle my reverse proxy stuff, and I've actually encountered people out there, whether it's in forums, Reddit, whatever, saying that they were having issues getting NextCloud to work with Cloudflare Tunnels, and that's kind of what prompted this video. So if we jump over to my desktop here, we can see that I do have NextCloud up on a domain, a subdomain, and it's up, it's working. If I come over here to files, we can see that I've got all kinds of different files in here and we can see that like one of these files I uploaded was 6 megs. One of these other files was 1.1 gigs. I didn't have any issues at all, either in NextCloud or in Cloudflare Tunnels with this configuration. So like I said earlier, we're also going to take care of a few different things. Like in the settings, we've got some cron jobs that we're going to set up actually using a third-party container called Uptime Kuma. I actually really recommend Uptime Kuma for a few different reasons. One, it will let you know if a container goes offline, but two, you can actually use that service that checks for whether or not a container is online to run cron jobs locally without having to get into cron tab or using a third-party service that also facilitates cron jobs that may cost some money. So Uptime Kuma is just it's a quick and easy Docker container to deploy that you can actually point to your cron.php file and it will run the cron jobs for you. It's just a real slick method that I figured out here a while back. So the other thing that I wanted to take care of is over here in the administration under setup or security and setup warnings. So it says your web server isn't set up properly to resolve WebFinger and node info. I've found no good reason that this even matters. If you know why these things may matter, let me know in the description or in the comment section down below. I may pay more attention to it at that point, but from my experience, from the stuff I've researched, these don't really matter for the average user. Also, this module PHP image link or Imagic has no SVG support. That was actually done for security and privacy reasons by default over here on NextCloud's docs. We scroll down. The following providers are disabled by default due to performance or privacy concerns. So that's why that error is still there. You can go the extra mile if you want to go and correct that or bypass that or whatever. But again, for security and performance reasons, I'm not going to delve into that. It's just, I don't know that it's worth the hassle and headache to deal with. So with all of that said, let's jump into getting this installed in Docker. So I'm going to be doing this in Open Media Vault 6. That's kind of irrelevant, but I just want you to know where I'm starting here. I'm also going to be using Portainer for this, for the initial deployment of NextCloud. So if we come over here to our Portainer dashboard here, go to stacks, you'll want to add a stack. But because I've already got this, I'm going to click over here on editor. And here we can see the Docker Compose that's in here. This is straight from NextCloud. So basically we've got a version 2 Docker Compose or stack if we're going by Portainer terminology here. We've got a couple of services. The first one is a database. We're using Marie Database 10.5. The restart policy on this is always, there is a very standard database command to run this just so that everything works appropriately in the background. We've got a volume for where we're going to store the database itself. You can store this basically wherever you'd like. I'm going to store it in home/docker/nextcloud/db. Of course, if you wanted to, if you were using like I am Open Media Vault and you wanted to put this in a shared path or a shared folder, you could absolutely do that. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to put this in home docker nextcloud db, and that's where we're going to store that. Next, we've got some environmental variables of a MySQL root password, a MySQL password, a MySQL database, and a MySQL user. Definitely change the MySQL root password and MySQL password. Make those something other than what I've got here. Of course, as always, all of this will be available in the description down below if you want to just copy and paste and go from there. But if you do that, be sure to change the root password and the MySQL password for security reasons. The next thing we've got is an app. That could be named anything. They named it app for whatever reason, but that image is going to be NextCloud, and the restart policy on that will also be always. We've got ports 8080 linked on the outside and port 80 on the inside. You could put this on basically whatever port you need to change to. Just make sure that you only change the 8080. Don't change the 80 after the colon there. We're going to link the database. We're going to make sure that the NextCloud container depends on the database being up. That's what the links and it depends on setup there is for. Below that, we've got some volumes for NextCloud. The config, custom apps, data, themes. You can, again, map those wherever you'd like them. In fact, for that matter, you don't even necessarily need to do this much granularity, but for the sake of being able to get in and modify some things easily, this is how I found it to be the easiest way to do it. And then we've got a local time set on here. I don't know that that's even necessary either, but there you go. So below that, we've got some environmental variables here. Now, you're going to see some passwords in here. I don't care. Like the email password, that's going to go away. That won't even be relevant by the time this video goes live. It's fine. So we've got a MySQL password that we've also seen up here. We've got a database and a user, both of NextCloud, and we've got a MySQL host of DB. That DB is actually dictated by the service name that's up at the top of the Docker Compose or the stack there. We've got some SMTP stuff. We want mail in case we lose a password, in case we want to get notifications for things, whether it's updates or whatever the case is. Email is a good thing to have in here, so we may as well just do it from here. Now, if you don't want to put this in here for security reasons, you don't want to put, usernames and passwords and that sort of thing in your Docker Compose or your stack, whatever, you don't have to. We can absolutely go into NextCloud later and put this stuff in manually if we want to do that, but it's here just for those who like to put it in their Docker Compose, their stacks, whatever. And once you got all of this filled in the way you'd want it filled in, you're happy with how everything looks here and where everything is going to be stored, what you can do is just scroll down and click on deploy the stack. Of course, mine says update the stack, but we are going to deploy the stack with this big blue button right here. So we're going to go ahead and click on that, and I'm just going to click update. We're going to hang out for a minute, and we're going to let this do its thing. Once it's done, we will come back and take a look. Okay, so just a couple of moments later, because I already had the images downloaded, we've got this, and basically it looks like our NextCloud database and our app are up. However, what we want to do is jump into the logs for the NextCloud database. And here we can see that it is initializing the database files. So while it's doing this, in fact, that actually happened pretty quickly. Basically, what we want to do is wait for this to finish. There will be a kind of a message at the bottom that will reference port 3306. And usually that's a good indicator that the database is up and running. So we're going to go ahead and give this another moment. There it is. And now our database should be up. So what we can do is come back and take a look at the logs for our NextCloud app, like so. And this says Apache 2D -D foreground. Usually that's a pretty good indicator that things are working as well. So what I'm going to do is click here. Okay, so this wants us to create an admin account. So what we're going to do is do that exact thing. So I've gone ahead and entered a username and a password, and now I can click install. As long as everything goes up the way we want it to, we shouldn't have any issues as long as you didn't, fat finger a password or something like that. So we're going to give this a minute to do its thing. Here in a moment, we're going to get a screen that's like, hey, do you want to install the recommended apps? Once it gets to that screen, we'll come back and take a look. Okay, as promised, here we are just a couple of minutes later, and we can see that it's saying, hey, here are some recommended apps, and we've got two options. One, we can click install recommended apps, or if we don't want to, or whatever, we can click cancel. But I think to get the full breadth and scope of kind of a basic install. We're going to go ahead and install the recommended apps. This will just take a few minutes, and once this is done, we will come back and move on to the next steps. Okay, again, just a couple of minutes later, it's got all of those different applications installed, and we are on our NextCloud page where it says NextCloud Hub 2 here. There's an option you can kind of click through here and get familiar with NextCloud. And if you're not familiar with NextCloud, I encourage you to do this. For the sake of keeping this video as concise as possible, we're not going to go through that right now. What we're going to do is click close there. And what we want to do is come up to the top right where our initial is. We're going to go to settings. Now you'll notice that this is being kind of slow, and that's just normal at first. Everything kind of runs slow while it's getting settled in. That's fine. It will get better, it should get better. It should get better. So basically here we are. This is our profile. What we can do is come over here to overview. So here we are on the security and setup page, and we've got some error messages. The first one that it's really having a problem with is it says you're accessing the site insecurely via HTTP. You're strongly advised to set up your server to require HTTP, and says instead as per their security instructions. That's fine. I think this is a good point to go and get a Cloudflare tunnel set up specifically for this configuration. So let's go over to Cloudflare Tunnels and get started. So here we are. I am logged into Cloudflare. I've already got my domain name pointed to Cloudflare. There's lots of information out there on how you can do that. And basically it just involves buying a domain name from your preferred domain name provider and pointing your domain to Cloudflare once you get it set up. Again, there's lots of resources out there. I don't want to go too much into that because it's going to be a little different for everybody. But once you're here, once you've got your domain name set up and you've selected your domain over here, what you can do is come over here to traffic, go to Cloudflare Tunnel, and then click on Launch Zero Trust Dashboard. What it's going to do is bring you over to here to a different dashboard. And what we want to do is go to Access and Tunnels. You can see that I've got a couple of different tunnels in here already. I'm going to create a new tunnel specifically for this configuration. So I'll click Create a Tunnel. I'm going to call this NextCloud. You can name it whatever you want, but just so I remember later, that's what this is for. And you can have multiple applications on a single tunnel. I'm just creating a separate tunnel for this tutorial, so hopefully that makes sense. So here we are on the install connector page for this tunnel. Now there are a few different options depending on what operating system or what environment you're using here. There's Windows, Mac, Debian, Red Hat, and Docker. So there's a few different ways that you can do this. However, I have an issue with the Docker route because it's tedious, which I know sounds silly, but oh, maybe they actually changed it. Maybe they actually changed. It looks like they did. It used to be that, so I retract my previous statement. They have fixed my issue here. It used to be, Docker run and then Cloudflare/Cloudflare, and then it was a version rather than latest. And that meant that anytime there was an update to, anytime they updated their end, it was, you had to go install a new connector, and it was a real pain in the butt. However, now that they've got latest in here, well done, guys. So what we're going to do is we're just going to come over here to our terminal window. We're going to get logged into our server. And once we're here, what we can do is just right click and click enter. It says I can't find this locally, so I'm going to go ahead and download it and get it configured. And there it is. It is installed. And it says, so at this point, we should be good to go. Of course, you can see some information that I'm going to have to blur later, but we can see the version is the most current version at 22.8.2. So that's good. We're glad to see that. What I actually want to do, though, is actually go back to Portainer, go to Containers, and right here we can see this Priceless Almeida. Yours will be named differently, but that is the container that we can see is Cloudflare latest. So what I want to do is open this up, duplicate and edit, go to the restart policy, and change it from never to always, and then click on deploy the container and replace. That's going to just really simplify everything. I'm actually really stoked that I saw this. I wish I'd seen it sooner, but basically this is how we're going to be able to not have to forward any ports in order to gain access to this remotely. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, we're going to use this Cloudflare tunnel for our remote access with no port forwarding. So once we've got that, in fact, if we come back over to this, we can see that it exited. It's fine. That doesn't matter. But our container is up and running, and we're good to go. So the next thing that we're going to do is actually come back over to here. We're going to click on Next. And then we're going to set up a domain name for this. In fact, I'm going to set up a subdomain for this. I'm going to call this Cloud, and I'm going to do dbttech.com, like so. And it says there's no DNS found for this. That's fine. Don't worry about that. What we're going to do next is select HTTP. I know that we're going to be accessing this on HTTPS. However, the actual container doesn't have an SSL in it. If it did, if there was like a port 443 or 8443 or something like that, in that case, then we would select HTTPS. Because we're just accessing this basically on port 80, we're going to select HTTP. The next thing we want to do is actually come over and grab the URL or the IP address and the port that we're going to access this on. Oops, we're going to paste this right in there and then clean this up like so. And then we'll come down to additional application settings, HTTP settings, and I like to disable chunked encoding like so. And then for the connection, I like to do no happy eyeballs and then click save. And now we've got NextCloud right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on configure. And I'm going to go to public host name and I'm going to click, and it's going to throw an error. And that's actually good. That means the security that's in place for this is working. So the next thing we want to do is actually change our config.php file. If you'd like to get early access to my content, you can head over to Patreon, become a channel member here on YouTube, or head over to dbtech.fans. And any of those ways will help support the channel and give you early access to ad-free content. So to change our config.php file, what we'll do, there's a few different ways you could go about this. We're going to do this in Portainer though. So what I'm going to do is come over here to our app right here, and I'm going to find a little console button right there. I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to click connect. And then if we do an ls-a, here we can see we've got like htaccess files and config folders. There's lots of different stuff in here. Some of it we're going to play with, most of it we're going to leave alone. What we want to do is actually do a, we're going to do apt, oops. We're going to do apt update, and then we're going to install Nano, just because it's easier. I don't like using some of the other editors. So I'm just going to do apt update and then apt install Nano, and then we can do nano config /config.php. And here is our configuration file, our config.php. So we're going to change a few different things in here for the sake of making everything work the way we want it to. What I want to do is actually come down right here. We can see that our trusted domains is fine, but what we've got here is an IP address, and basically it's saying this is the only way I'm going to allow you to access your dashboard or anything, right? So what we're going to do is create a new line. We're going to do one space equals greater than, and we're going to do cloud.dbtech.com. That's not right. Let me make sure I've got that right. Cloud.dbtech.com. There we go. Like so. And that, oops, and then we're going to end that and put a comma at the end there. And then we're going to keep scrolling down here a little bit. And you can see that there's some other stuff going on in here. We're going to add a few more things into this just to jump ahead a little bit. And so basically what I'm going to do, after here where it says installed equals true, I'm going to drop down to a new line, and I'm going to paste this stuff in here, and then I'm going to reconfigure some stuff, or I'm going to reformat some stuff rather. There we go. That was weird, but we're going to fix it. Default phone region, right? It doesn't seem like a big deal, but it'll throw a hissy fit in the background saying you don't have this set up. It probably doesn't matter, but it's just one fewer thing to see in that dashboard as far as little temper tantrums it's going to have. There we go. So what we've done is we've done an overwrite protocol equals HTTPS. That's going to help us fix that HTTPS issue that we were seeing in the dashboard. In fact, if we come back up to here, once we start accessing this on our domain name, if we don't do this overwrite HTTPS thing, it's going to throw a different error. So we're going to fix that. Rather, we're going to get ahead of it so we don't even have to see it. Next, we've got a default phone region. Again, that's another one of those little complaining error messages that'll pop up on that same screen. And then disable previews. I don't know if it's necessary, but I actually want to set that to false now that I think about it. Or sorry, enable previews. Wants to be true. If I could read my own stuff here. So once we've got this, we're basically good to go as far as this file is concerned. So we can do Control O and enter and Control X. And then at least that part of stuff will be fixed. So what we want to do next is actually come back to our containers. We're going to go over here to NextCloud app. We're going to check the box and we're going to click restart. So then we can come back over to here and refresh. And now it's asking us to log in, and we love to see that. That means we're on the right track. So I'm going to put in my username and hit enter. Now again, while it's settling in after a restart, it's going to be a little bit slow, a little finicky. Just give it a minute. We'll get logged in here very shortly. Okay, so what we want to do is, again, come up to the top right, click our icon, click on Settings, and then if we come back over here to Overview, okay, now we're actually seeing what we saw before with regards to this is Caldav stuff. We're going to fix that next. I forgot. We're going to fix the Caldav stuff next. Again, I don't necessarily need it for what I do. However, I know that some people do use Caldav, so let's take a look at how to fix that now. Okay, so to fix this Caldav stuff, what we're going to do is come back over to Portainer. We're going to come back to our list of containers. We're going to go back to the console here for the actual NextCloud app. We're going to click Connect. And then what we're going to do is cd into etc/apache2/sites enabled. And we'll do an ls, and here we can see that we've got a 000-default.conf. We're going to actually nano into that. And then what I want to do is just come down to the bottom. This is why you should never just copy and paste. You should actually pay attention to what it is you're doing here. And that is because if we take a look, I ended up moving these 5 lines outside the virtual host in etc apache to sites enabled 000-default.conf. However, I needed to make sure that those URLs were actually correct. And now that they are, now that I've gone in and saved this, restarted the container, and come back, now we can see that our well-known /webfinger and node info, just like we saw before, those are the ones that we're seeing and not the actual Caldav stuff. So that was a little goof on my part, and I wanted to make sure that I clarified that and explained why you should never just copy and paste. You should actually pay attention, because even I, as the guy making this video, screwed up by making that mistake. So don't do that. So the next thing we want to take a look at is actually upload max file sizes and memory sizes and things like that. In order to kind of figure out what our starting point is, what we're going to do is come over here to the bottom left where it says System, and we'll give this just a second to load here. And here we can see all of the stuff about my current system here. What I want to do is actually scroll down to the bottom. We can see what version of PHP we're on. Our memory limit is 512 megs. For a single user, this might be fine. If you're going to have multiple users on here, you might want to crank that up a little bit. Max execution time, in this case, is 6 minutes. That's probably fine. And we've got an upload max file size of 512 megs. Now, here's the deal, right? I'm going to show you something. If I come back over to here, go to my home page. In fact, I should have gone to Files. Let's go to Files first. So here we are. We're in just the general files. So let's actually grab a video, something that is more than 64 megs, but something that isn't going to break the bank here. We're just going to grab, let's grab that one. I'm just going to drag this over, and I'm having no issues with this. It was 70 plus megs for that file, 75.9 megs, and it's uploading just fine. However, if you want to be 100% sure that you're not going to run into any issues, we'll take a look at how to do that now. So in order to kind of update some of those numbers, what we're going to do is come back to Portainer here. What we're going to do is we're going to do an ls-a, and we can see that there's an htaccess file right there. So we're going to do nano.htaccess and hit enter. And then right up here at the top, I'm going to just create a couple of extra lines here, and I'm just going to drop some stuff in here that we're going to talk about it. I'm going to paste this in. And here we can see that we've got some PHP values. And basically we've got upload max file size, 16 gigs, change that to whatever you want it to be. That's just the default that I went with. Post max size, also 16 gigs. Max input time, again, 6 minutes, 3,600 seconds. Same for the max execution time. Both of those are 6 minutes. Also, we've got a memory limit of 2 gigs or 2,048 megabytes. And that's just to kind of make sure that we've told NextCloud to really let us do what we want to do in here. So I'm going to do Control-O and Enter and Control-X. And then once we come back over to here, we can take a look. We can see that this is uploaded 76 megs. It didn't care that it was more than 64 megs, even though that's what it said in there. So what we're going to do is come back to Portainer. We're going to go to Containers. We're going to, again, restart this container. And then we'll click on Files. Or we're going to come back over to our tab. We're going to click on up here. We're going to go to Settings, go to System down here. Scroll all the way down. Now our memory limit's 2 gigs. Our max execution time is 3,600 seconds. That one actually didn't change. We've got a max upload file size of 16 gigs. So that kind of ensures that we shouldn't have any issues uploading files. Okay, the last section of this that I want to take a look at is actually cron jobs background jobs. There are a few different ways that you can facilitate background jobs with NextCloud. The first one is Ajax, and basically what that does is anytime you click around, it will just kind of run a script in the background that kind of updates things. However, I've run into tons and tons and tons of issues with that, and I've had my my whole NextCloud just bog down while it's trying to do stuff. So I found the best solution for a self-hosted setup like what we've got here is to go over here to Cron. So what we'll do is we'll just click this option right here. And then what we want to do is actually set up some way to activate that Cron. So what we want to do first is find out what our Cron URL is. To do that, what we're going to do is come up to the URL bar, like so, and we're just going to put on cron.php after our domain name there and hit enter. And it says, hey, cron job. So if we come back over, we can see it was last run a few seconds ago, just like that. So we know that that is the correct URL. Background jobs are using system cron. That's good. So what I want to do is grab this URL here and just kind of hold on to it for a moment. What I'm going to do is come over to my actual home server here. I'm going to copy this. This is Uptime Kuma. I've actually done a whole video on this in the past, so I'm going to kind of breeze through some of this. I will try to remember to put a link to Uptime Kuma in the description down below. But what I'm going to do is come back over to Portainer. I'm going to go to stacks, add a stack, paste that in, just like so. All of this is perfectly fine as it is. I'm going to click on deploy the stack. Okay, so just a couple of minutes later, we can see that Uptime Kuma is starting. And if we go over here to the logs like we've done in the past, we can see that it looks like it has finished up what it's doing here. So I'm going to click on the port over here and it's going to say, hey, create an account for me. So we're going to do that. And then once we've got this, we can click create. Great. So what I want to do is add a new monitor. The monitor type will be HTTPS because we're going to be accessing this on a domain name. The friendly name, we're going to call this NextCloud. Oops, like so. And then I'm going to come over and grab this URL from that cron URL that we looked at a moment ago. We're going to come back over to Uptime Kuma. We're going to put that in there just like so. Make sure that you don't have a double, like an HTTPS thing, like I almost did there. You can run this like by default every 60 seconds. I don't think that's a good idea. I would probably run it every 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much stuff you're going to be doing in here. For the sake of keeping things simple, though, I am going to do this at 180 seconds. That's 3 minutes, just so that we can kind of go through this process. And basically everything else here is fine. We don't need to do any setup notifications. You could if you wanted to. If you want to know how to do that, check out the other video. That's not part of this one. But basically, once we've got all of this set up the way we want it to, we can click save. And here we can see that it was added successfully and it's up. So those are both good. So if we come back over to our settings page and refresh, basically at this point, we can just kind of hang out and wait for the time to elapse. Again, that 3 minute mark, for the time to elapse for it to go check that URL and ping that cron.php file, which will then kind of start the cron job in the background and make sure that our server keeps running as smoothly and efficiently as possible by maintaining those cron jobs in the background, even if we're not actively engaged with our NextCloud instance. Also, since we're on this page, it kind of sparked something in my brain. When we first set up this Docker Compose and took a look at it, I mentioned that if you didn't want to put your email stuff in a Docker Compose for security reasons, which I totally get, you can actually do it from the basic settings under background jobs, under email server. You can fill out this information, click save, and deploy your email service that way as well. So I just wanted to make sure that there was an understanding of there's more than one right way to set up your email for this. Hey guys, this part of the video is strictly for my Canadian viewers. So if you're not Canadian, skip this video and I'll wait until you're done. Okay, hopefully everybody who's not Canadian is now somewhere else in the video. If you are Canadian and you're looking to get into self-hosting, but you don't want to break the bank with new hardware, you should definitely check out the folks over at Refurb Feed. They have a huge selection of always changing inventory of products that have been used and refurbished and are ready to go for your next home lab project. And if you use code DBTech when you check out, you can get 10% off your next laptop purchase. Be sure to check the description of any of the products you consider purchasing, as some of them may not have a hard drive or they may not have a power supply, but all of that will be listed in the product description of each of the products as applicable. So be sure to head over to refurbfeed.com for your next home lab purchase. So after waiting, like it says here, just a couple of minutes, we can see that the last cron job was run about 2 minutes ago. So here in just a moment, the Uptime Kuma container will go ping that cron.php file, and then it will run that cron job in the background. So I'm just going to kind of hang out here for a minute. I'm going to refresh again. Last run 3 minutes ago, so we're getting kind of close to that marker where it's going to go ahead and rerun that cron file. Again, it's not going to be exactly 180 seconds. There's going to be some deviation here and there periodically, but just know that about every 3 minutes or so it should rerun. There it goes. Last run seconds ago. So that tells me that this is in fact working, that it's running about every 3 minutes to do all of the cron stuff in the background. And here we can actually see that things are running more smoothly as those crons continue to run. Okay guys, there you go. There's how to set up NextCloud in Docker, but also taking it a step further and making sure that it's accessible from the internet without having to open any ports on your network, whether you don't want to or you can't because you're on a CGNAT setup or something like that. I love using Cloudflare Tunnels for this exact reason. And there are some tricks that you kind of have to know in order to get tunnels to work with certain applications. And that's why I wanted to make this video, is to help those who want NextCloud accessible from the internet, but are stuck behind some reason that they can't expose ports. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, it would mean a lot to me if you give the video a thumbs up and shared it with somebody who might find it useful. Of course, as I mentioned, everything will be available in the description down below, including different ways that you can support the channel if you want to, and that includes anything from Coffee to PayPal, becoming a channel member or a patron, and some of those different things will actually give you early access to ad-free content on this channel. So with all that said, again, I want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me today, and I will talk to you in the next video.